bless you, that'll be good. Anyway, so the way this divides up, I think it's totally separate. And I think the way to avoid any possible problem with mill is keep it totally separate. In other words, utilitarianism, and the book is quite clear on this, utilitarianism is a position. It's a position that was established in the 19th century by Jeremy Bentham. It was popularized and improved, I think, made clearer, whatever you want to call it, by John Stuart Mill, who was a tremendously good writer. Jeremy Bentham was very well known, but he wasn't really a very good writer. But in any case, these two individuals define utilitarianism. But interestingly, what utilitarianism is today, you really can't say it's Bentham's or it's Mill's. It's probably more Bentham's, but also it certainly includes what Mill is saying. So that, the way to write this essay, I think, is the first third of the essay is about utilitarianism, period. In other words, it's not about John Stuart Mill. It's not about Jeremy Bentham. Why? Well, they're dead, one thing. And another, the position is very much alive and well. I mean, it's really alive and well. But it's not alive and well because people are any experts on John Stuart Mill. It's alive and well because it's part of the game of our world, and a big part of the game of our world. So I think the first section is about utilitarianism. In other words, some type of a sentence or two at the beginning that you want to write an essay about John Stuart Mill, and the best way to do that is to explain the position that he helped define, and that is utilitarianism, and then don't mention John Stuart Mill again, just talk the position. And then do Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. The reason is you'll have what it is they're going to end up with, and you can see where it's coming from. Just seems like that would be a real clear essay. The other thing is, following Blake's idea, I redid this lecture, which we're really going to redo them all now, to make it exactly 3 points or maybe 2, and suggest that you may want to write on all 3 of them or pick 7 or 8 of them. The idea being the way to get a good grade, the way to get an A that I'm not going to mess with because, saying vague or wanders or one of the other things that you disagree with would be just do this stuff. In other words, when you write on utilitarianism 333 words, you don't mention Jeremy Bentham. It's not in there. You don't mention John Stuart Mill. And you just talk this. You're not talking about their life or anything, just these points. Now, you don't need to remember them all, but maybe 7 or 8 of them. In other words, enough to tell a story. I don't think you need all points to tell a story. And just, if you want, I think Blake's going to do it, is just really divide this into almost 8 or 9 paragraphs, and then just do it that way, because it's clearer. It's, as Blake said, and I'm sympathetic with, it was a little hard to write what was supposed to be like a 500-word essay in a flowing way, because you kind of got lost on what the devil was flowing, and it ended up with a lot of extra stuff. And I think this may eliminate, well, at least we'll find out. I think it's going to maybe eliminate the extra stuff. Or I'll probably find as teaching theme goes, it won't work either, but it's a good idea. It's an idea for right now. So anyway, what about John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism? The book makes it real clear. Now the book has one thing you need to interpret. The Bentham's version of utilitarianism is going to be called act utilitarianism. And John Stuart Mill's version is going to be called rule utilitarianism. That matters. Act, rule, act, and rule. Rule. And that matters. The book does distinguish it, but then it seems to me, at least, to leave it very confusing. In other words, they mention that Jeremy Bentham is the act utilitarianist. utilitarianism. They mention that John Stuart Mill is a rule utilitarianism, but then you get a bunch of discussion about acting rule utilitarianism without mentioning Bentham Mill again, which it seems to me if you're trying to learn this stuff, that isn't the easiest way to do it. So anyway, just realize that what point 2 is act utilitarianism, what point 3 is rule utilitarianism, and they're kind of different. This one is simply based in, if you will, facts or something. This one attempts to be based, honestly, in psychology. Psychology, by the way, at this point, has been born. After all, Kant is gone, and Wundt has done his thing, suggested that we could study the difference between nature and nurture, if you will, and psychology has begun. And Mill is a tremendous believer, he's a very intelligent human being, and was a tremendous believer in psychology and what it would show. Now, at this point, Mill's writing maybe 1850, 1860. Obviously, psychology hadn't accomplished much yet. We don't know yet much about the brain. We don't know yet much of anything in terms of detail in psychology. But the idea that we'll do more and more research, and what that research would seem to show about the nature of human beings is becoming a lot more better defined. Both of these individuals are British. They're in the height of the Industrial Revolution for Britain, so they're living at a pretty modern time. This is a couple different things. This is the time of British liberalism. At this point, liberalism meant conservative republics. So go figure. Anyway, and I'm not sure what the other group was, but in any case, the Bentham and Mill are part of a world that's beginning to orient towards business and so forth, and also a world that sees democracy as having no problems whatsoever. Now, democracy is unbelievably good, but it also has some puzzles. But at this point, they're still in the glamour days of early democracy. In other words, democracy is just seen as the perfect answer. In other words, you want to get rich, you want to be successful, you want to do this, you want to do that, democracy will give it to you. And that may be true, but it's got a few puddles along the way. But this was a very glorious time, really, in England. This is the time that they thought the sun never set on the British Empire, but more than that, it was the time this was the time of Queen Victoria. So it's a couple things. It's Victorian England, and Victoria was the one that lived a long life and was by far the most popular queen Britain has ever had. They loved Queen Elizabeth, that's for sure. I mean, the woman's got 150 years old. I mean, not like her. They've got to like her with time. But Queen Victoria was kind of a legend in her own time. Very independent, definitely an independent woman. And beyond that, of course, was the success of democracy and the success at this point of Britain. And so, in every way, they were smiley-faced about where the world was going and where they thought they already were. So, in any case, here we go. Utilitarianism. Utilitarianism has, in a way, two definitions, but they simply build on each other so they're the same thing. In other words, first of all, utilitarianism is what? It's a position that has no religion involved whatsoever. Now, the individuals, for instance, that wrote this, weren't necessarily anti-religious, but they sure weren't pro-religion. They were looking to build a theory of ethics that had nothing to do with religion, period. Because they thought, at least at this stage in history, that religion was inevitably biased, and therefore they couldn't have an objective theory. They're living in Britain at a time that Britain is a bit of a melting pot for the world. They're certainly seeing Indian people and all kinds of individuals from all over the world with different religions. And they're thinking there's no way to bring that together into some religious acceptance and generalization or something. But what in today's world is called pluralism. But in any case, they didn't see that. So they seek first of all, this ethics has zero to do with religion. So it has to build on something. Well, it doesn't build on humanism. In other words, it's not based in the fact that man's basically good. They're kind of assuming man is basically good because they're idealistic people, but they don't in any way think that proves anything about ethics. What they think is that in in general, rules or patterns are just a bunch of words, and that's not really an ethic. It doesn't teach you how to do it. Okay, so what they say is to have it, no religion. They say that it's a hedonistic system. That is a word that goes way back in Western civilization, way back in any civilization. And it means that humans seek pleasure. In other words, what they say is, forget any talk about religion, forget any talk about humanism or whatever. What are human beings up to? They're doing what they dang well please. And they're trying to make a good job of it. Now, what they please may be to be a true academic, to be a true focused individual. In other words, to try to become an absolutely top-notch surgeon down in the medical center. And they're quite happy studying all their lives and constantly reading medical journals to improve their skills. In other words, the pleasure doesn't have to be party time. It could be very serious time, but it's whatever, presumably, the human just plain wants to do to shape their life. So, human seek pleasure. That is clearly totally different from Kant. This is a consequentialist theory. It's the opposite from Kant. Kant was, after all, a deontologist, a rule that he tried to deduce from. This position is consequentialist. In other words, this is about results. They don't really give a darn why you did something. They care whether or not you got it right, period. What matters is the results. And that fits, I think, an age where they're interested in results, they're interested in business, they're interested in building better everything, better education, better everything. And the only way they do that, is get the results of doing it. In other words, you want to build education. For instance, Bentham was fascinated in his life, concerned with trying to improve the penal system in England. Apparently, at this point, the jail system in England is horrible. In today's world, it almost seems like one would want to go there sometimes with the simplicity and so forth, unless you get a great big ugly neighbor as a cellmate that wants to be your friend. So, but other than that, you probably are not going to have a whole lot of problem in today's world in the jail system. Anyway, Bentham certainly wanted to make changes. He spent a lot of his life trying to make changes in the penal system in England. He made quite a few, really improved it a great deal. Okay, so utilitarianism, humans seek pleasure, consequentialist theory. How could you turn that idea, consequentialist, and the idea that humans seek pleasure, into a theory? Well, you make it about, and what they saw ethics as not so much being about individuals relating to one another. That's usually the way people think about ethics. But if you define ethics as just seeking pleasure, it hasn't got a whole lot to do with one person relating to one person. In some way it does, but not necessarily a whole lot. What it has to do with is social systems. The social system may be being a school district, K through 12. The social system may be being a hospital or a hospital district, or any social structure of a fairly large number of individuals, how they can and should work together in an ethical direction. That's their interest. So what they come up with is very analogous to democracy. They simply say the goal of a social system, whatever. It could be, I think a good example is a Conroe Independent School District. Pretty darn big, wasting a tad of money with a few too many administrators. But other than that, doing a pretty good job, obviously. And the goal of the social system is to achieve the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Now, one could argue about what that greatest number involved is, but for these individuals, it's anybody who's connected with the school district, and whether or not it overall gives them pleasure or not. In other words, all the parents, all the faculty members, all the administrators, everybody involved. Just an interesting idea. It's kind of shaping ethics more toward the social, but that's not necessarily a bad idea. maybe makes it a little closer to the political, but it's not in the political, it's something social. So the global social system, what that is point A is generalized into point 2. That's how it's defined. You make that into a total theory by saying the overall goal is to achieve the greatest happiness for the greatest number in a particular social setting. Now I think you can see that is because these individuals think humans seek pleasure. That is pure and simple a generalization of democracy, period. Because they're going on one man, one vote. What they're thinking is, you don't worry about this person's intelligence being better than this, or this advice being better than this. Everybody counts. It's just what you want. For the Conroe Independent School District, what do you want it to be? And if a parent doesn't necessarily express that maybe a rational point of view because they're thinking about their kid, that's their vote. And so the point is, it's based in one man, one vote. And they very much follow the democracy idea, particularly in its most idealistic form. In other words, they believe that majority rules, period, and minority loses. If you want to win, you get to be the majority. And other than that, tough. And they're pretty straightforward about it. Why? There's no place where the buck stops. There's no religion involved. There's no humanism involved. It's results. And so they go with one man, one vote with the idea that if the majority decides something for Conroe Independent School District, it's probably going to work because they'll be behind it. They'll put some money behind it, whatever. Right or wrong, that's what they're about. It's a little different take on ethics, but it's clearly ethics. I think you can see this section, you can write, I think, any way you want to do it, but I don't think it needs to involve bending the rule, really. It's just a section about what it's about. Now, maybe there's a point D, which is, there's maybe two things you can put in here. Whatever summary you want to talk about to explain what what utilitarianism is. But then, where utilitarianism is alive and well in today's world. For instance, there is not a walking, talking utilitarian, I don't think, as an individual in the whole world. Nobody goes around saying, I'm a utilitarian. I mean, okay, what's that? It just isn't where we are. Why? One thing I think, if someone would say, what does that mean? It means we all seek pleasure. Somehow that wouldn't sound good. What do you want your ethics to be? Well, I believe my ethics is Christian ethics, or I believe this, or I believe that. And if your answer is, I believe it's seeking pleasure, somehow, that's not good. Some people really lecture you on that. So anyway, it is not an individual ethics. So, therefore, what good is it? Well, it turns out that it seems to shape the world completely. And it shapes the world the following way. Every multinational corporation on the face of the planet that is publicly held, in other words, a large multinational corporation that's publicly held, which I think that group runs the world. Now, people can disagree about what one runs the world. God runs it directly, politics runs it directly, etc. I think the game is the big companies. But whether or not it's the big companies, they're certainly major players. And every major corporation in the world is publicly held. In other words, it sells stock. If they sell stock, they are utilitarian. They almost always, basically, Microsoft, Exxon, Shell, on and on the list, Starbucks, you name it, they almost always have a vice president for ethics. What the vice president for ethics at a major corporation does, I don't really know. But in any case, they have vice presidents for ethics usually. Can you imagine a vice president in ethics sit at the board meeting? I don't think they'd say much. Okay, Joe, glad to hear from you. What's our ethical position on this? Anyway, but they all define their company as being based in being a utilitarian corporation. The reason is they want to absolutely defend one man, one vote. Granted, they're finally looking for profit, but also they're looking for survival. And the way they look for survival is you've got to satisfy the majority, period. And the minority can banquet, they can wait. Starbucks for a long while wasn't going to go for blonde roast or anything like it. because they were selling really wicked coffee that you get addicted to.